So hi everyone, it's me Gilbert Yup. I'm from the College of Education taking a Bachelor of Elementary Education. And yeah, if you remember last discussion, we talked about the prenatal development. And now we're gonna talk about Module 12, the physical developments of infant and toddlers. But I'm gonna show to you first our learning outcomes. At the end of this module, you should be able to first is to trace the physical development that you have gone through as infants and toddlers. Second is to identify factors that enhance the physical development of infants and toddlers. Third is to present your own or others' research on the physical development of infants and toddlers. And the last is to draw implication of these principles and processes to the child care, education, and parenting. So now let's define physical development. So if we talk about physical development, it refers to biological changes that children undergo as they age. Includes physical and brain change, development of reflexes, motor skills, sensations, perceptions, learning skills, and health issues. Infants, so it is a baby, a very young child that cannot walk and cannot talk. So in an early stage of development, baby is just the beginning. So toddlers, it is a young child who is learning to walk. So we think to wonder how infants develop their body since we're focusing on physical. So these two trend, or we may also call pattern, will help us to know the proper growth of human body. So the first one is the cephalocodal patterns. So what is cephalocodal patterns? So it is the postnatal group from conception to 5 months when head grows more than any part of the body. So if we say postnatal, it is the afterbirth of the baby, and if we talk about conception, it is when the sperm cells and egg cells collide and form a new organism. So the development starts sa paglilihi of a woman to afterbirth, and it will end when the baby becomes 5 months old. So it is very important to pay attention to a woman if she is pregnant for 9 months, because it is part of the process. So the pattern of this is from top to bottom of the body. For example, from head, neck, shoulder, and so on. So we typically see if the baby outside of the womb commonly has a big head. So diba, if you kanang makakita mo kanang baby, kanang bagong gawas sa tiyan sa bata is kanang dako jud ang iyahang ulo. So the movement of the pattern start from head down to toe. So as I said earlier, if we look at the picture, it illustrates the changes of the body. It's not only applied after birth, it is also works inside of the womb. That's why if the baby move outside the womb, the head must be the first to be pulled because it is the large and stiff part of the infant baby. So that's why ang ulo jud ang ginakuan sa doctor, because it is the large and stiff part of infant's baby. So as time goes by, the shape of the body becomes balanced and gradually change day by day. So the infant learns their upper limbs than their lower limbs. So limbs means our legs and hands. So diba? So it said that the baby or the infant learns their upper limbs, which are their hands. I mean their arms, than their legs, which represents as the lower limbs. So if you wondering why infant learn their upper limbs first and why not the lower limbs, is all because, as I stated earlier, infant is just a baby. Infant cannot walk. They usually laying on their beds, and aside from that is they don't know how to stand and they don't know how to balance. So now let's proceed to the proximodistal pattern. So it is a prenatal growth from 5 months to the birth when fetus grows from inside of the body outwards. So it is a prenatal, opposite to postnatal. So the growth automatically start changing in just a week. So it is a little bit similar to cephalocaudal pattern. But in proximodistal is the baby start processing inside in the womb. However, prenatal development start with the fertilization. So as I said in the last discussion, that prenatal development is more on, start on fertilization. So in germinal, followed by embryonic and fetal period until birth. So the movement of the pattern start from the center of the body towards the periphery. So the periphery means is the farthest point, which are the arms and legs. So as we know, the growth of proximodistal trend means means of the birth, but there's an extension. It also applies in the first month after birth. So regulation of maturity and muscular control of the tract and arms followed by the hands and fingers. For example, the hands and the feet develop before the fingers and toes. So lisod sad no nga ang motubo una is ang atong pumagko then sa ato ang kamot. So motor development refers to the development of motor skills. So from the center of the body outward. So infant has the ability to move around. So the word motor skills is movement, but the movement of the infant is limited because they have not enough they don't have enough force or strength to control their body. So we all know even a fetus can move inside the womb. Like kanang maana din ang mama is hala nilihok ang akong anak sulod sa akong tiyan. Like it's more on kicking. So yeah, and that's all for proximodistal pattern. So now let's proceed to the height and weight. So it is normal for newborn babies to drop 5 to 10% of their body weight within a couple of weeks of birth. That is due the baby adjustment to neonatal feeding. So once they adjust to sucking, swallowing, and digesting, they grow rapidly. So it is very obvious that the baby is new to the current environment because the baby is within the womb for 9 months, and and the way of abiding foods is very different, diba? That's why they drop their weight off to 5 to 10%. So however, if the baby adopted the new way of eating, they grow quickly. For example, I'm a Filipino, so I go to America, and we all know that Americans are they don't eat rice there. So in order for me to survive is that I need to adopt their culture, especially their foods. So at first siguro is magamay ang akong weight, but if ma-adapt na nako is okay na. Next one is breastfeed babies are typically heavier than bottle feed babies. And through the first 6 months, so after 6 months, breastfeed babies usually weight less than bottle feed babies. So kanang bottle feed babies is kanang magamit og bidberon. So it is very important to breastfeed the babies because the baby needs fresh and natural milk that will help the baby heavier. And also, ang breastfeed manggod is it provides a lot of benefits. One of these is giving natural antibodies that will help to resist illness such as ear infections. So in general, an infant length increases by about 30% in the first 5 months. So it is because their muscles start flexing and activate. Next one is a baby weight usually triples during the first year but slows down in the second year of life. So in the first year of life, the baby is just laying in bed. So in the second year of in the second year, the baby makes more move and develop their motor skills, which means they can be able to stand and walk alone. So speaking of ability to walk, ang word nga infant is mahimo na siya og toddler. So low percentage, the last one is low percentage are not a cause for alarms as long as infants progress along a natural curve of steady development. So as a parent, it is not necessary to be panicked if the percentage of the growth of the infant become low. So it is normal because of the delay due to the underlying health conditions sa bata, especially where hormones are not fully it's not fully active. So it is better to have a slow process than nothing. So furthermore, parents should be aware of the growth sa ilahang anak, sa children. If there's if naabitaw problem, they should observe first. So now let's proceed to brain development. So the myelination is the process by which an axon are covered by insulated by layers of fat cells, begins prenatally and continues after birth. So axon means the elongated portion of the neuron located in the center of the cell. So each neuron sa imuhang brain cells has an axon that snakes away from the main part of the cell. So the process sa myelination increases the speed at which info travels through the nervous system. Yeah. So at birth, the newborn's brain is about 25% of its adult weight. By second birthday, brain is about 75% of its adult weight. So shortly after birth, a baby's brain produces trillions more connections between neurons than it can possibly use. So the brain eliminates connection that are seldom or never used. The infant is literally waiting for experience to determine sa connection nga ma-made. So now let's go to the reflexes. So if we talk about reflexes, it is the newborn has some basic reflexes which are, of course, automatic and serve as survival mechanism before they have opportunity to learn. So first one is sucking reflex. So if we talk about sucking reflex, it is initiated when something touches the roof of an infant mouth. So which means the sucking reflex is very strong in some infants and they may need to suck on a pacifier to comfort. So, di ba, if you observe kung ang bata maghilak is tagaan siya pacifier sa iyong mama para mahilom. So, next one is rooting reflex. So, is most evident when an infant cheek is stroked. So, the baby responds by the baby respond by turn in his or her head in the direction of the touch of and opening their mouth for what they call this kanang sa pagkaon bitaw for feeding. So the next one is the gripping reflex. So babies will grasp anything that is placed in their palm. So ila din ang kung unsa yung na silang kabat ibutang nila diretso sa ilahang bakba. So the strength of this grip is strong and most babies can support their entire weight in their grip. Next one is the curling reflex. So when the when the inner sole of baby's foot is stroked, then the infant respond by curling his or her toes. So what they call this, when the outer sole of baby's foot is stroked, then the infant bitaw will respond by spreading out their toes. Next one is the motor reflex. So infant will respond to sudden sounds or movement by throwing their arms and legs out and throwing their heads back. So most infant will usually cry when they startled yeah, they usually cried when they're startled and proceed to pull their limbs back into their bodies. So yeah, as I said, limbs is kanang either sa ato ang arms or ato ang legs. Next one is the gallant reflex. So it is shown when yeah, an infant's middle or lower back is stroked next to the spinal cord. So the baby will respond, curving his or her body toward the side of which is being stroked. The last one is the tonic neck reflex. So it is demonstrated in infant place on their abdomen. So yeah, whichever side the um, child head is facing, the limbs on that side will straighten while opposite limbs will kanang mabaliktot bitaw will curve. Yeah.